Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome to Aesthetic Imaging Video Tutorials. Today's going to be an exciting one. We're going to be editing this time-lapse here. We're going to start off in Adobe Lightroom Classic, and I'm going to show you how to import your images, how to edit an image, and then sync all those settings to all the other images, and then how to export them out. And then we're going to jump into Adobe After Effects, where we're going to fix up some issues that you might have when you play back your time lapse. We're going to get rid of flickering, and we're going to get rid of some birds. But wait, there's more. We're also going to add some stylized dynamics to this by adding movement, but not just any movement. We're going to be turning this into a parallax. So I'm going to be showing you how to create this whole thing from start to finish. All right, so let's get started. So here we are in Adobe Lightroom Classic. This is fresh updated today. This is the newest version, but everything that we're doing can be done in pretty much any version. All right, so let's get started with importing our images. Now, they're already in here, but I'm going to show you how to get them in here. So we're going to go down to import here. We're going to make sure that we're in library first, and then we're going to go down to import. And we want to select the drive that we're going to, and just go down to where all your images are being stored. Tyler Storm field. And then we're just going to click on the folder containing the images. Now, all these are grayed out, but that's because they're already in our library. You want to make sure that all the photos are selected. I like to just do add. If you were to do copy, it would take all these images and copy them and then put them into a new folder. And we don't really want that. So we're just going to do add, and then you just click import. All right, so what I like to do, G, is select, no, G, thank you, is select an image that's kind of like in the middle. So I'm going to do 135. Now the first thing you'll notice is that this is incredibly slanted. But the thing is, it's not. It's just the ground itself. The camera's level. The ground itself is slanted. And that just kind of distracts. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to go into develop. We can either click on here or we can hit D on the keyboard. And that'll bring us to our development panel. Develop panel. All right, so we're going to go up to this little icon here. This is the crop and angle tool. And we're just going to tilt this so the ground is even, just like this. And we're going to set this to 16 by 9. Now, we just want to move our image so that this horizon lines up with this bottom thirds line, just to get a little composition going on. So we're just going to pull this down. Maybe move this over a bit. Straighten that out a little bit more. All right, that's fine. And then we can just hit done. All right, so now we're cropped and tilted. So now we're going to come in and we're just going to move down to our little basic adjustments here. So we're going to go to Profile. I'm going to put this to Adobe Standard. All right, so we're just going to maybe bring the exposure up just a little bit. Maybe bring up the contrast just a tiny bit. Highlights, we're actually going to bring down so that we get more detail over in this area. Shadows, bring up just slightly. Now we're going to adjust the whites over here. Now, if we go too far, you'll notice that this is turned yellow. And if we hover over this, you got a bunch of red spots down here. We can actually click on this to allow this to stay up. This is our clipping. This means that all the red parts are overexposed, are blown out. There's no detail left here. So a cool little thing we can do while we're editing our whites, we can hold down Alt Option, click, and you'll notice everything turns black. Now, as we bring this up, you'll notice you'll start seeing some color being brought in. Again, that's where our image is being overblown. So we want to take this and just bring it to just under where it's not being overblown anymore. Same with the blacks, we can do the same thing. Alt Option, click, turns white, and we can pull this back till we start getting some clipping. Maybe turn up the vibrance just a little bit. Yeah, we'll do a little bit more. There you go. Maybe turn up the saturation just a tiny bit. All right, so now we can go into our tone curve here and just start moving things around, see what looks good. Maybe pull our whites over further. There we go, something like that. Just little subtleties. All right, so now we're going to go to our HSL color sliders. Hue, saturation, luminance. We're going to go to saturation first, and we're going to click on this little icon here. That will allow us to actually pick a color in our image and edit it by clicking and dragging up for more saturation or down for less. And I'm going to lower the saturation for our sky, but not completely. Want a little bit of color in there. All right. Oh, another thing we should do is under our color temperature, I just want to bring this up so it's a bit more warm. All right, let's go back down here. Maybe take our aqua, bring that down a bit too, because we got some aqua in the sky. Let's turn it down just a little bit. All right, so now we're going to go into our hue, and we're going to select our icon again. And let's select our grass and just bring that down a little bit. Now you notice it's taken with our sky too. So let's do this. Let's bring up our yellow again. So now it's really just the green and the grass that's being affected. Maybe add a little bit more red to our sky here. So now we can mess around with some luminance. Let's take our blue and kind of bring that down a bit. We can add some real dynamic here. All right, and I think that should be fine. Sharpening, we're actually going to bring down. I don't like Lightroom sharpening. Noise reduction, we can bring up just a little bit. I mean, there's not a lot of noise to begin with. All right, and last thing we're going to do is remove chromatic aberration and enable profile corrections. Actually, what we're going to do also is we're going to come back up here to where it says texture under our basic. And we're going to have to turn that up just a little bit. Let's put some more detail in there. All right, I think that looks acceptable. And the rest of the things we're just going to ignore. So now what we want to do is hit G to go to our library. And we're going to select this frame here. And then we're going to go and shift select the first frame. And we're just going to go to sync settings. And we're going to turn on all the stuff that we want to sync. So we want the treatment and profile, white balance, basic tone, tone curve, texture. We don't need clarity. We don't need dehaze. We want to affect the sharpening, all the color, local adjustments, nope. Split toning, nope. Noise reduction, yep. Lens correction, transform. We don't need effects. We'll do calibration and crop. There we go. Now all we have to do is hit synchronize. And now you'll see that our images are starting to change. Simple enough. All right, let's go to 135. And then select the last frame, shift select last frame. Go to sync settings, synchronize. All right, so now that we have all of our images synced, we're gonna select the first one, shift select the last one, and then we're gonna go to export. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose what folder we want to put them into. I'm doing Lightroom exports here. As you can see, there's already images here. So do choose. I'm going to change, the name is Tyler Park Storm, and the start number is at 100. If you started at 1, the images can show up in kind of like a weird order. So I like to start mine at 100 at least, 3 digits. And image format, I'm going to do JPEG. You can save it out as a PSD, TIFF, PNG, DNG, original. Make sure the quality is up to 100. Color space, RGB works. And we're going to check off resize to fit, long edge. And we're going to set this to 1920. So that way it will automatically size it down to 1920 by 1080. And resolution, I usually have it at 100, but I'm putting it at 72 just for expediency purposes in After Effects. And we can select sharpen for screen. And that's pretty much it. And then we hit export, which I'm not going to do because I already did that. All right, so now that you have your images all edited and exported, let's jump over into Adobe After Effects. So here we are in Adobe After Effects. What we're going to do is in our project window, we're going to right click, go to Import File. And you want to go to where you have your images saved. So what we're going to do is we're just going to select the first one and make sure that Importer JPEG Sequence is checked. Now we're going to hit Open. And that has imported all of our images into one single little file that we can play back. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on our image sequence and go to Interpret Footage, go to Main. And we're going to change this assign frame rate to 23.976. And then we're going to hit OK. All right, so now we're going to take our image sequence and we're going to bring that into a new composition. So we're going to drag it down to here. Boom. All right, so let's fit up to 100%. All right, so now if we play this back, we can see our time lapse. Now, it's not too terribly noticeable, but there's a little bit of flicker going on. Just the tiniest bit of flicker. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to fit to 100%. Now, I have not found a good tutorial or any information on how to get rid of that flicker within After Effects without having a paid plugin. And it's really frustrating. I actually spent half of the day trying to look up how to do it. I figured there's got to be some way. Alas, there is not. So instead, I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to sit down and take the day and figure out how to do this. And I had one idea going in that I figured I'd try first. Just so happened that that was the right move. And it was really easy. So, to get rid of our flicker, but we're going to take our image sequence down here and we're going to duplicate it just like that by hitting Command D. And then what we're going to do, we're going to zoom in here and we're just going to move this over one frame. Then we're also going to do toggle switches and modes, and we're going to set this to lighten. So, and as we play this back, we can see that now that flicker is pretty much gone and it looks a lot smoother. Now there's an unintended benefit to this. So let's turn this off and let's see if we can find a good frame. Where was it? Where is it? Where are you? Where? Oh, there you are. Boop, boop, boop. All right. So we have these birds here. Now, if we turn this on, our birds go away. So I think I should demonstrate what exactly is going on here with this lighten blending mode. So I'm going to create a new solid, and I'm going to make this 50% gray. Actually, you know what? No, we'll bring up the saturation, make this red, make it 50% brightness, hit OK. OK. Now, if we look here, basically whatever's red is being cut out of this image. So all the darker bits are being cut out. Screen and add do the same thing, except what screen and add are doing is they're adding brightness to the image. So what this is actually doing is it is cutting out the darker bits and then adding the lighter bits back on top without adding any extra exposure. So if I were to take this red solid here and change the color to gray and I go to brightness, as I bring this up, you can see when we match the brightness of the actual clouds behind the bird pretty much disappears. Now it's not fully gone, but it's just enough to not notice it while it's playing back. So that was an unintended benefit, you know? Completely Bob Rossed that stuff. Happy accidents, right? All right, so another unintended consequence of this, however, something that is more of a negative, is take a look at our ice cream truck over here in this corner. Whoa. There's two of them. To fix this, we're going to zoom out a little bit. We're going to grab our rectangle mask tool here. And whoops, make sure that your top layer is selected. And we're just going to add a mask right across here. We can even hit F to feather it out just a little bit. And then set this to subtract. So now, if we bring back our gray solid, you can see now that there's a solid line where our layer is actually being removed as well, on top of, you know, removing all the dark areas. All right, let's get rid of that one final time. So we've gotten rid of our flicker. We've gotten rid of our birds by getting rid of our flicker. And got rid of our double ice cream trucks. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to Composition, Trim Comp to Work Area to get rid of that one frame in the beginning. And then we're going to take both of these layers, right-click, go to Pre-Compose, and we'll call this Timelapse Footage. There we go. So now we're going to make it all fancy pants. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to take this time-lapse footage and duplicate it twice. Command D. So now we have 3 copies. This bottom one we're going to rename to midground. This one we're going to rename to foreground. And the top one we're going to rename to sky. So we're going to poke out the eye of the sky. And we're going to go into our foreground layer. We're going to double click on that. Actually, what we want to do is pre-compose that again. Shift Command C. Pre-compose it. And move all attributes. Hit OK. And we're going to do the same for the sky. We're going to pre-compose that as well. Hit OK. Now we want to go into our foreground layer. And what we want to do is over here, we have a region of interest. So we zoom out a little bit, go to our region of interest, and we can just cut out just the foreground or just the ground. And then we can go up to Composition, and we can do Crop Comp to Region of Interest. That way we just have just the ground. So we go back to here, and we bring this down to where it was originally. There we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to go do toggle switches and modes. And underneath here, this is to turn everything into a 3D layer. So we're going to do that. Turn everything into a 3D layer. Now with our foreground selected, let's press Y to bring up our pan behind tool. So that way we can move the anchor point, and we're going to bring it up right to the point where this layer begins at the horizon. You can zoom in to get real close. Yeah, something like that. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to hit R to bring up our rotation. And we're going to go under X, and we're going to rotate this -90. Now what we're also going to do is we're going to hit S to bring up the scale, and we're going to unlink these dimensions. And we're going to take our Y, which will be moving this towards us, and we're going to increase the scale on Y till we get to the bottom of the frame here, where it originally was. So now we're going to add a power pin tool, CC power pin tool. We're going to add that to our foreground. Zoom out a bit, and we have these 4 points right here, 4 little handles to grab onto. These two, the top two, we're going to leave where they are. The bottom ones, we're going to click on it, hold down Shift so that we only move it in one direction, and we're going to bring this over until it is perpendicular with this one. Now here we go, and we're going to take the left one and move that out as well. And what we can do, we can zoom in. You notice that we're a little off here. We can just readjust like so. Come over to this side. This side looks pretty good. All right, so now it basically looks like the original. Yeah, there's some stretching, but that's fine. All right, so now we're going to do the same with the sky. So let's turn that back on. Let's jump into our sky comp. And we're going to take our region of interest and just go over the sky. And we're going to end it probably about just at the top of those trees right there. Actually, before we do that, let's bring this down. We're going to create a mask like so. And this mask is going to end right at the top of the trees there. And we're going to hit F. I'm going to feather this out just a bit. And then we're going to take our region of interest and we're going to pull this up to about there. All right, composition, crop comp to region of interest. Now we go back to our main comp here. Let's hit V to bring up the move tool. Bring that up to its original position. Check on that, make sure it's good. All right, so what we're going to do, hit Y to bring up our pan behind tool, and we're going to bring that down right to where our layer starts. Now for this one, we're going to hit R. On the X-axis, we're actually going to go in the positive way. And let's bring this to about 80. Hit S to scale, unlink our constraints, and scale it up in Y until you get to the edge of the frame. We're going to add our power pin to the sky. Bring this up, bring this in. Remember holding Shift while moving it to move it along one axis only. Axes. Move this over to the corner right there. That one looks spot on. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a new camera. We're going to set this to 50 millimeters. Hit OK. Nothing happened. So now we're going to create a new null object. Turn this into a 3D layer. And we're going to connect our camera to our camera movement. So we're going to take this little pick whip under the camera and we're going to drag it to the null. So now our camera is parented to the null. So what does that mean? Well, let's hit P for position, set a keyframe, and then go to the end here. Now let's take our X, Y, Z, our Z, push the camera in to maybe about there. Now if we play this back, let's set this to half, bring this up to fit 100%. So now as we play this back, we see we have this bit of a parallaxing going on. Like, it kind of looks like it's moving through 3D space. Now, something else we can do is we can select our camera, double tap A, and we can turn on our depth of field. And we can turn up our aperture by a whole bunch here. And if we go to our first frame, and where it says active camera, and we switch this to top, here's us looking down on our scene. We have our camera. These magenta lines are pretty much the angle of view. And as you can see, even our ground plane, it's in the shape of our camera. That's how the perspective works. Like when we use the power pin tool, it's actually stretching it so that it fits within this triangle, giving the illusion that it's actually a flat plane. All right, so let's move on. All right, so our focus distance here. What we're going to do is we're going to move this. Now we see this pink line moving around. That pink line is our focal plane. Wherever this is, if there's something along that plane, it will be in focus. So what we want to do is pull this back down to where our focal plane lines up with our original background image, which will be here. So we can set a keyframe for the focus distance, go to the last frame, and as you can see, our pink line is past the middle ground here. So we can bring that back down. We can hit Shift to move it faster. And boom. So now as we animate, that focal plane is always going to be hitting our midground. It's always going to be on here where it focuses. So we go back up to fit to 100%. We can see that we have depth of field. And that just adds a little dynamic to it. We can even up the blur level a little bit. And what you want to do under iris shape, you want to change this to something a little bit higher. So if we set it to octagon, you can see that we have a much higher quality depth of field, blur, bokeh. All right, so I usually just put it in an octagon. I mean, you get a better result with decagon, but it's not really that noticeable. And putting it on decagon will only add render time. So if you don't notice a difference, you don't need to go that high. All right, so there it is. That's our edited time lapse. And there are basically just billions of ways to edit your time lapses. And each one kind of can be determined by the type of footage that you have, or the look of it, or what you're trying to go for. So this is just one of the many ways that you can edit your time lapse. But there it is. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.